All right. All right, guys, we are live. It's episode 273 of the Shooter's Mindset. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Co-host joining me, Jennifer Seymour's in the house. What's going on, Jen?
Hey, everybody.
Gray Cannon's in the house.
Hey, everyone.
Guest star of the hour, Brandon Wright, is joining us. What's going on, Brandon?
Hey, guys. What's going on?
Welcome back. I mean, it's been since episode 87 we had Brandon on the show. It was about 3 years ago. Damn, we've been doing the show for a while. I don't know why.
That's a long time. Has it been that long?
That is.
Yeah, it's been so episode 87. Go ahead and search back on the YouTube feed if you want to see what was going on with Brandon back 3 years ago. Watch that one.
I probably had less wrinkles then.
I don't know. Were you even on that show, Jen? I don't think you were with us.
I was. I've been doing this for like 4 years with you, Anthony.
I thought it was me and Steve who were the hosts of that episode. I didn't watch it. I didn't go back and click it. You were on that one?
I was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, Jen's been with us longer than I thought. The time goes by quick. You know, it does.
Yeah. I've been doing this like 4.5 years. Thank you very much.
There you have it. Bless your heart.
I know. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Show sponsors here, the folks over at GSL Technologies. If you're in the, need a suppressor of any sort, she has one on a competition gun. So they have competition hunting, pistol suppressors, the Max, the Uzis, the Techs. They have all the gangbanger guns too. If you want a suppressor of any sort, check them out. Check them out over at gsltechnologies.com. And if you want to get any live questions in, you guys are watching on the live feed on the Shooter's Mindset Facebook page. It's a good place to just plug them in the live feed. And we'll upload this thing to YouTube after the live broadcast is up. Also, the shootersmindset.com. You can watch this episode there after the live feed goes down, and you can check out our blogs, bios, some of our what else we got up there? I don't know. Shootersmindset.com stuff, show stuff, right? Check that out.
Awesome website.
Yeah, built by Greg Cannon himself. There you go. All righty. But Brandon, let's kick this one off. For those who are unfamiliar with you, just tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you kind of do for Smith & Wesson right now.
Yeah, sure. So first off, thanks for having me on. I know it's been a while. I've missed out on some things, but I've got a lot of things that have been going on for sure. Currently for Smith & Wesson, I do a couple of jobs. Number one, I look over the East Coast for the law enforcement division. So I've got a great team of guys all over the United States, and I've got a team of 4 that I look after. And so they're just a great bunch of dudes, and we get after all the law enforcement sales. And so if anybody out there is a law enforcement officer, you can always hit me up for questions about that stuff. I also shoot on the team, kind of not of a major player. Julie and Jerry are the 2 main that go around and do that all the time. And so I kind of participate when I can. I was able to shoot 2 major matches this year and get into it. I used to be really heavy into it. For you guys that don't know, I'm a USPSA Grandmaster and IDPA Distinguished Master in competitive shooting. I used to shoot between 12 and 15 matches a year. And with my job and my title, it really takes a lot out of me. So I try to focus on family as much as I can. I've got 3 kids. I've got a 21-year-old son, 2 14-year-old girls. They keep me busier than my job will ever keep me busy, which is good. And my wife helps, support all of that. And she's absolutely amazing and kind of keeps everything down while I'm out doing my thing. So do that. And then alongside of that, I'm also out teaching competitive shooting classes. Get out and do civilian classes maybe 2 or 3 times a year if I'm invited out somewhere, and I'll try to fill a class and spread some good news.
Anthony, you're muted.
No, I thought it was just me. I'm like, I did something wrong. I'm sorry.
I muted myself because I started to hear like babies starting to cry in the background. I'm like, all right, mute, because it's about to to cry really heavy. Like, my side. I'm like, okay. But there it is. No, I've seen you shoot a couple of matches. We were at the Smith & Wesson indoor IDPA match nationals, I believe.
Yeah.
That was probably a few years ago, but I don't know if they still even do that match up there because they moved facilities and all that, right? Right.
Yeah. They don't do it anymore. They ended on the 20th anniversary. And that was I don't think it was last year, the year before, I think. So that was the last time they did that match, and they won't hold it again.
Man, fun match. It was a fun match. I always kind of, people say, oh, I'm not going to travel all the way to, what was it, Connecticut?
Springfield,
right?
Yeah.
Springfield. So not only did you have some fishy gun laws up there, but it was an indoor match. So you always had, like, dude, I was, people were like, oh, well, I'll just, budget outdoor matches. They're probably more fun than an indoor match. And I was like, dude, that's not true. You know what I mean? That indoor,
Yep.
if you were going to shoot one indoor match, like, that was the one to be at, because
Absolutely.
I didn't notice any different between an outdoor indoor. Like, everything was set up to the point where, I mean, you were still moving, you were still doing everything. You weren't confined to like indoor range rules or anything like that, or small spaces.
Yep.
So, I mean, the place was gigantor. I mean, they had like, I think it was like 14 stages in that facility back then.
Yeah. Yeah. So they had the ability to do a lot of things that we can't do at outdoor matches, like control the lighting scenario. They introduced strobe lights, lights in your face, a lot of different challenges that you can't really plan for. And to be honest with you, no one really ever practices with a flashlight. Most everybody, home defense or the tactical guys, they all have lights attached to the guns. Well, they don't let you do that. So you got to do it with a handheld light, which, prevents it gives you new things to work on. It brings new challenges to competitive shooting. And then that was right at the year that they changed the scoring, which was a whole nother challenge, right? So you go from a half second to a full second for what we'd say a Charlie, and then the Delta was 3 seconds. So, man, you took one miss in the dark.
That's why I don't shoot at IDPA.
Yeah.
That's why I don't shoot IDPA.
I still dig it. I really do.
I still dig it. I really do still dig it.
You always told me you were gonna like do a class with me and fix my Charlies, but that didn't ever happen. I still shoot Charlies a lot. So
yeah. It's one of those things where you have to be fast, you have to be accurate. When they changed the rules to the fault lines, that was probably one of the best things they could have done. It really just changed the game to make it even across the board instead of it being subjective. They penalize you for missing, which in the real world, I mean, if you miss somebody and hit an innocent person, it can get kind of nasty for you. So try to stay away from that.
I can be accurate and I can be fast. I just can't be accurate and fast.
And you speak to a lot of the top guys that
not that funny.
When the IDPA rules kind of change as far as the scoring does, you talk some of the top tier guys like yourself and the Vogels and those guys, and they're like, yeah, I still shoot it the same way, the same pace and everything I've always shot it at. A lot of the some of the other guys kind of was like, all right, well, I got to slow it down. I have to, all this stuff. And I went back to look at some of my older IDPA videos, and man, I was blazing through some of these stages. And I noticed some of my more recent ones. I don't know if I'm matured. Maybe I just gotten better, more.
You just got old.
Awesome.
I don't know if it's efficiency and movement or what it was, but I'm definitely a hell of a lot more accurate than I was in the past. Like, I looked at some of these matches, like I was dropping a lot of points. Mm-hmm. Like it was silly, but I was like, I was still up on my game that, so I don't know, maybe I just got better at being accurate. I don't know. I still like it. I thought the whole scoring thing was going to turn me off. I'm like, I'm done with it. And I always said I've been done with IDP for a long time, but I always go back to it and I still enjoy it. So this is old news as far as the scoring, but it's still fun to me.
Yeah, it's a game and it challenges you in new ways. And like you said, I didn't change anything about what I did because I'm always trying to shoot fast and accurate. The one thing that it did play on was the risk versus reward, right? If I get away with shooting this target a little bit faster, and I take a down 1 or a down 2, is it worth the risk of pushing that hard through that part of the stage in order to get the reward at the end, which would be a faster time and overall? That doesn't happen anymore, not with a full second. I mean, the question you have to ask yourself is, what can you do in a full second? I can draw the gun. I can hit inside 10 yards in the first shot under a second. I can reload in under a second. So You take 2 down on one target, it's 2 extra seconds. That's a whole, sometimes that's a quarter of the stage. It's 25% of the stage on your down. So I usually average about 30 to 35 down when we were shooting the old system. And now I'm probably 18 to 20. I take a little bit off of it. 10-yard target on a split. I'm probably going to be a 21, 22, so I can see it, call it, and hit it. Where IDPA, I might be a 25. So I give it just a little bit more to reassure the sight, correct the sight if I need to, and put it right in the zero. And the new carry optics thing, man, that has got my heart, brother. I love that.
Yeah. I want to mention one thing before I go, because before we get off this topic. So I shot that indoor match a few years ago. We were referencing, I shot it. And then the next day I followed the super squad, right? I was kind of bunked with Nils Jonasson at that time. So I just went to, I was like filming Julie Golub, her stages, and I was just overhearing. I didn't really actually, because you guys are in the zone, so I don't really, it's a bad time to ask people anything really when they're thinking about their stage plan or anything like that. But one thing that I heard you talk to Nils about, I believe, was there was, I don't know, a low light stage, and you know your times, which is, you don't really hear people kind of, well, I can do this in 0.2 seconds, I can do this in this amount of time. I know my times and what I can do in the scenario. So you're planning your stage based on these times that you have in your head already, which is, you don't really hear this, following top tier guys much. Oh, well, I can do this and reload in this amount of time. So I'm going to do it this way, this way, this way, this way. And you had these times, like you just knew it. Like, all right, I can do this in this amount of time. So I'm going to go about it this way. That was real interesting to hear that. And you were talking to Nils about that, and you guys were coming out with like some stage plan. So not many people know, or they kind of know, but they don't really have it like, maybe written down or something or studied.
Are you the one that talked about that on the last time we had you on here? I can't remember if it was you or someone else, that in the stages, like for instance, a moving target, you'll watch it and see how fast it is. And your own shooting ability well enough to know how fast if you can come over here and shoot 2 before you come back to that moving target. Yep. Yeah, I thought so. You were the one that went through that. Your times really well, and you know how to go through and judge that and plan it out.
It couldn't have been even on a mover. It could have been even on a mover target. I don't remember exactly what he was referencing at that match, but it was impressive to hear someone say, just knows those times, and based upon those times, they're putting a stage plan together. I don't think most people really know that.
Well, so that's interesting you bring that up, because it gets into a lot of the things that I talk about in the training courses, right? Like I've got a 2-day coming up in Springfield, Tennessee, the end of this month, October 24th, 25th. I know it's on a Thursday and Friday, but it's hard for me to, hit the weekend sometimes, and the range wasn't available. So we had to do it on a Thursday and Friday. So we still got a few more spots, but that class is geared towards that kind of logic, right? Looking at shooting from a time perspective versus just let me get up here and do it, right? So when you look at performance and you look at shooting, and this is how I approach everything, is it's all based on time, right? So if you take a bill drill, for instance, and I open a lot of my classes this way, take a bill drill and we do it in 4 seconds, right? And so you have a draw, you fire 6 rounds, 4 seconds. Well, if you were to take that drill and not do anything else to it, no reloads, no target changes, no one hand, nothing like that, just your standard 6 rounds, and you made it more advanced, you would do it by cutting the time, right? So we talk about the 5 fundamentals, the stance, grip, sight alignment, sight picture, and trigger control, and how those 5 fundamentals are applied as the time starts to come down. And what you end up finding is that your sight picture and your trigger control are the only 2 things that change. So between a 3.5 bill drill and a 2-second bill drill, and then a 1.8 bill drill, and then a 1.5, you're eventually going to get to the point where you have gone beyond your ability, and you kind of know where you live in your time, if that makes sense, right? So if you as a shooter can knock out a bill drill in 2.4, and I can do it in 1.8, where am I getting you on time? That's the only way to be able to evaluate performance. So am I getting you on the draw? So that means that my reaction on the buzzer is faster, my hands are moving faster, my grip's already established, the gun's getting up to position where I know the sights are going to be, and I'm going to break the shot quicker, right? Or am I getting you on split times? So the split times go into how fast my finger can move, how well is my grip on the gun, and then what can I manage on as far as recoil management goes on the gun. And so those are the two things that go into that. And so if I can do it faster, you have to break down those components into its most simplest form and then do drills in order to support those components. And so when I go to the range and practice, it's about breaking those down to the simplest form, mastering those, getting them as low as I can go, and then kind of putting it all together, if that makes any sense at all. So, a lot of that opened up, man, when I had the opportunity to shoot with Rob Latham, who's I consider him a really good friend. He's an outstanding instructor. He puts things very simple, right? I mean, you just kind of look at it and go, yeah, that's a duh moment. But when you work with those guys, when I was first exposed to those guys and watched a 1 second reload, a 1 second draw, it kind of puts it in perspective that, yeah, it can be done, right? You're always obviously limited sometimes by gear and equipment. But the competitive shooters figure that out. It's the tactical guys that are sometimes hung up on the gear. And I understand for the purposes that they have those for.
Right. Boom, man. Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, like you said, your class is where? Is in, what is it, Tennessee?
Yeah, Springfield, Tennessee. It's going to be that's going to close me out for the year, and then I might start scheduling for next year. I don't know. I don't have a schedule established.
Where they reach at Wright.shooting.com or Wright.shooting.com for reaching out, or social media.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boom. There we go.
Yep.
I mean,
yeah, either that or Instagram. Yep.
Yeah, there we go. We had you on. We were about to schedule this show a few weeks ago. We had some kind of busy days, and we decided to reschedule. So that leads me into number two. And at the time I wrote these notes, it was this past weekend you took first place in carry optics. So a few weeks ago you took first place in carry optics. What challenges do you experience learning to dot?
Oh, that's a good one. So the dot right now is a hot topic. I mean, it's along the law enforcement market. Guys are starting to open their minds to put these on the gun and start running them. Of course, competitive shooting, we've been doing it for years. Guys like Doug Koenig, Rob Latham, just the plank owners in competitive shooting have been doing it for years, putting the aim points on top of these, competition guns. But now finally the technology's catching up, right? So we need to take advantage of this. And I find that the advantages that it gives me are good. In the beginning, it was very difficult, right? I hear the challenges that guys go through and being able to start to shoot a dot, right? I can't find it. I keep losing it. It moves around so much, right? I can't keep it steady. I get all these different, the biggest thing is I lose the dot. And it just comes down to training, honestly. You put yourself in the environment, you start working it. I would say realistically, it took me, 60 days of presentations to get to where I can go back and forth between an iron sight gun and an optic gun. Now is the dot. That's with an RMR, that's with an SRO, it's with a Delta Point Pro. I mean, you put it in my hand, I'm going to see it with an M&P. Now, if I change guns, if for some reason I start shooting a Glock or a SIG, the grip angle is going to affect that. So, in the way that it sits in my hand in the presentation of the gun. So I've been shooting the same gun for a really long time, and it's working, man. I dig it. It's fast. I don't have to worry about, proper sight alignment. I throw the gun up there, and some of the advantages that I see it gives me is, inside 10 yards, my times don't change. I'm probably one of the exceptions to the rules. My draw time at 10 yards is right around a second. So 0.9 to 1.1, right? That doesn't change with a dot. The only thing that changes with a dot is the confirmation of the hit, right? Me and being able to see it, call it, and know as soon as that gun lifts what I'm seeing. And I can do it with iron sights, but it's not as clean. There might be a little bit of movement with the sight. It might be off to the right, off to the left, or I might say, I didn't quite see that, right, the way that I should have. But with a dot, it gives me that confirmation. Times the group really don't, the times change a little bit at 15 yards. They start to increase speed as further distance goes. So my 25-yard times are about 1.1 to 1.3 out of the holster, 25-yard hit, right? And so that only fluctuates by like a half a second. I'm like 1.7, 1.8 out to 75 yards. So that's where the dot really comes into play, is those long distances are unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like that time just gets crushed. The other thing it does is shooting on the move. I'll take targets on the move now, like at 20 yards, no problem, open targets with a dot, and feel confident that I'm going to be where I need to be. Put a no shoot on it or a hardcover, something like that. Might not risk it. I'll probably stop and shoot it. But if it's 12, 15, I got no problems hitting it on the move.
Sweet. Hey, real quick, we got 2 lives. One from Sean Marks. He said, Brandon is an awesome dude, very privileged to have opportunities to shoot with him. And Chris Lee said, Brandon equals dumb man.
Yeah,
Awesome.
There we go.
Thanks, guys. Sean's a good buddy, man. Him and I go back. He lives near me. We try to shoot a lot, man. He's a good buddy.
There we go. Yeah.
Sweet.
Man, referencing some of this dot talk, I was back and forth on this shit. I've had a dot gun on a Glock 34 set up for a long time. I wanted to get into it before the real carry optics thing was even hot.
Yeah.
And I can never get really behind it. You know what I mean? Like you probably hear from a lot of your students, I couldn't find a dot. I didn't find it any faster because I was losing the dot. My draw times decreased because out of the draw, I wasn't finding the dot initially. All these things, but now I have, and this is recently, I probably have 4 to 5 guns with a dot on it. And now I'm starting to, just from presentations and actually shooting the dot, I've actually gotten accustomed to it. Now I don't know, like I haven't took the plunge in actually shooting a dot in competition yet. I'm actually deciding to take a course here with the range that I work at here November 1st, which is a red dot pistol class. So I'm just going to unleash some of the gear and the dots in that before I really hit a match. But I finding it the way to go, essentially. I mean, I have a dot on talking to a Smith.
Nice.
We're talking to a Smith and Wesson,
R8.
the Smith and Wesson guy about a dot on a revolver.
Yeah,
And I take that back. I have shot this revolver. I haven't shot any carry optics action pistol shooting, but I shot some steel challenge with this. And in that match, I did find on the initial draw, and drawing a revolver, I would assume is a little different from drawing like a striker fire pistol, especially your grip that you're getting on the gun. But I was losing the dot on the initial first plate. But I did find just kind of keeping both of my eyes open, finding the dot a little quicker. I don't know if that makes sense. But now I notice that I shoot with both eyes open versus winking slightly with my left eye or whatever it is. So, I mean, now I pick up this revolver and I would say about 95% of the time, I'm usually finding a dot pretty quick. It's still not 100% there. Like I'm not super confident, but I'm pretty good with it. What are your thoughts on, shooting with both eyes open with a red dot? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have to. It's a must. The way your brain works, you got your left eye sees what it sees, your right eye sees what it sees, and your brain is what merges those two images together. That's why we don't see the gap in our nose, right? And unless you cross your eyes, you might see your nose at that point, but you don't see that space between your eyes. And so it becomes important, and the whole basis of it is kind of on that Biden aiming system, right? Like having a lit reticle. You're looking through the optic, right? Once I draw the gun up, I'm keep both eyes open. I'm looking through the optic, but my left eye is seeing the target, right? So if the guys that are out right now, or even you, right, take your thumb and hold it out in front of something like in the room, right? Pick something out, light switch, something like that. And with both eyes open, your thumb is kind of like a ghost, right? You can see the outline of it. But you can see the light switch beyond your thumb. Well, if you close your non-dominant eye, and then your thumb comes clear, it's covering whatever you're looking at. If you open that eye back up again, it becomes kind of a ghosty look, and now you can see the target downrange. Well, when the reticle is lit, right, that helps when you merge those two images together. So basically you can take tape, put it right over the front part of your optic, and you can shoot a group out of the holster, hold it up like no problem. You can still aim and hit what you're looking at. So if you look at it like closing an eye, like you're going to focus on something, your focus should be the target, right? That's the benefit of having the red dot. Then the red dot comes into your line of sight, and once that happens, man, then you're good to go, right? You just put the dot, superimpose it over what you're trying to hit, you're good to go. So you have to have awareness of it. Now, there's a couple things that happen, like people with astigmatism may not see the dot clearly, right? So it may look like an elongated football, or it might look like two dots, or it's kind of split in half. And so I have an astigmatism in my left eye, but I still see a red dot in a circle. There's other optics that I may have, like a rifle optic. Sometimes if I transition over, that becomes a little bit of a problem. But yeah, it's not a scope, right? There's no magnification. I'm not like closing an eye to look through it. I see some pictures when guys close eyes, and I'm like, get that eye open, right? Trust what you're seeing. And honestly, next time you go to the range, man, put some tape over it, right? And then just shoot some one-hole drills, and you'll see, wow, man, okay, my brain is seeing the target. I'm putting the dot over top of it, and you can go to work. And then just take the tape off, and your confidence level just shoot through the roof, being able to shoot that thing with both eyes open. The setup that you have on that, revolver is going to make it a little bit more challenging. And the reason why is because you don't have a rear sight, front sight. You got no index point. So, my big thing right now is I've been shooting the SRO for probably 3 or 4 months, something like that. And I love it. The RMR is great. There's only a couple that I would recommend for duty use. RMR, the Acro, the Delta Point Pro. And then honestly, man, I know that the SRO they've said, this isn't for, combat use or law enforcement use, but I'm like, man, the 8 years that I worked the road and the time I was with the civilian contractor, I'm trying to think how many times I dropped my gun. And it was very little, right? And drop my gun. And so, you plan to hold on to it and not drop your gun. And so it gives you the advantage, and the advantage is the big window to look through. And you still get to co-witness. You absolutely have to co-witness those red dots, because, it is a mechanical device. It could go down, batteries could go south on you at any time. And so I would definitely say that the co-witnessing helps in 2 ways. One, it's a backup set of sights in case the dot goes down. But 2, when you're training it and working it, that's what you look for, right? And you should train yourself to immediately fall back to those iron sights if the dot's not there. You throw it up there and you're like, man, where is it at, right? I'm looking for it, I can't find it. Well, on that revolver, you've got no reference point to figure out where it's at. So you're like doing the old figure 8, crap, I can't find it. You wait till you see, oh, there it is, and then you go to work. But if you could co-witness those sites, you would immediately be able to align that up, and you'd find the dot every time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're gonna get into discounts, more dot talk, but Jen, you usually start us off. What do you have?
Yep. You can get 10% off at carbonarms.us on Carbon Arms shotgun shell caddies, ratchet belts, extension tubes, all the needs for shotgun stuff at carbonarms.us using the code TSM10. You can also get 10% off at Under Industries on jerseys and sweatshirts. It's getting cool, so you might need a sweatshirt. And they have awesome sweatshirts. If you look at my pictures on my page, I'm wearing my sweatshirt in a lot of the stages. So I can still promote my sponsors, but not freeze to death. So it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think the only time I took a sponsored jacket living in South Florida or a sweater was in that indoor nationals match, because it's usually snowing in the month of February up there.
Well, PRS only has 2 different weather, either like really, really hot and rainy or really, really cold and raining. So,
Nope. Fair weather shooter.
There you go.
We can just do indoor matches, right?
Greg, what do you have?
No.
Right. You can save 10% off that.
Go ahead.
You can save 10% off at Overwatch Defense with the code Cannon10. Shoot them an email or give them a call to get an awesome Cerakote job. You can use the code Mindset10 in all caps to save you 10% off of all phone scope products.
What do I have? Brandon, you got any discount codes that you know of off the fly, on top of the head? Anything from the sponsors or anything?
No. I don't take sponsors anymore, man. I can't promise them that I'll be able to give them I still shoot Atlanta Arms, I'll say that, but I don't have any discount codes. I love their stuff. Yeah.
I hear this. So I was just trolling. Like I got it. Most of the time I don't get a chance to do any like research. I mean, with the kids, I'm just kind of like putting the notes together on the fly. So I went to Smith and Wesson's website. All right, they just started this yesterday, and they are a little automatic refill on that thing. She on the Smith and Wesson 380 Easy Shield. That's always a mouthful to say that model pistol. Yeah. And the 2.0s are offering like a discount. So if you buy a 2.0 shield or a Easy 380 shield, they're offering $50 rebate on that. That's from Smith and Wesson Direct. So if you're in the market, $50 comes back. And I know I bought my 2.0, my first 2.0, with a discount, and I got a $50 Visa, and I use that for some family meal or something. It's awesome. So it's always good to get a little extra change back when you purchase a pistol.
That's right.
So that's what's going on with Smith and Wesson right now. Like that's as of yesterday. So go out to the local gun shop, buy a 2.0 or something, and get some money back. Yep. What do I have on my the Taran Tactical Innovations.com TSM10 saves you 10% off all their base pads, all their parts, Benelli parts, rifle parts, pistol parts. Save you 10% off Taran Tactical Innovations.com. Tactical TSM10 10% off. They have a lot of holsters, a lot of rifle gear over there, a lot of compensators. Tactical.com TSM10. And we hit the carbon arms thing, so I'm done with discount codes. So that'll kind of any live or anything on the fly, Greg. Any follow up? No, move on. Yeah. All right. You're with me?
Yeah, I was muted. I'm on two computers right now. Sorry. But no, I have nothing live right this sec.
You figured after like fucking 5 years of us doing this, we would unmute ourselves, but apparently that's still not the case, even with me after doing this shit.
I'm about to say, I'm the newbie. I'm under a year.
I haven't forgotten to unmute myself because I haven't muted myself yet.
We'll cut you a break on that one.
Don't mute me or I'll cut you.
Yeah.
I literally just tried to drag my mouse over to mute you, and then I realized I'm on the computer behind the laptop, and it won't go.
If we're going to switch the topic over to ladies, right? Jennifer is probably the most organized person I've probably known as far, and I don't know, probably top tier. She's really organized with shit. So maybe I don't know if this is a woman thing in general, but she seems to like just follow some. She knows like, all right, this is how you do shit. This is how it's supposed to be done.
I'm trying to figure out where you're going with this,
especially with the shot. I don't know. You seem mistake free. I'm getting at right here. At least with the muting thing and the SHOT Show thing. Like I was surprised at planning for SHOT Show. It's like everybody usually puts their plan together, and I have a whole notes, times, and who I'm supposed to meet, and it never plans out the way it's supposed to be on my notes. But supposedly Jen will make the times match for some. Like I'll see Brandon Wright like in the middle of the hallway, and then we're talking shit for 30 minutes, and then there goes my appointment with like Leopold or somebody, and then there goes that, and I'm like, all right.
And see, when I saw Brandon, like not this year, he wasn't there, but 2 years ago, I'm like, oh hey, I'll come back and talk to you. I've got a meeting, and I went to my meeting like a responsible adult.
Yeah, you got to build in buffers, man.
No, I would be
then
talking
I came
to Brandon
back when I had an opening and was like, "Hey, I'm back. What you doing?" and chatted. See?
No, I'm just the total opposite of that.
See, I think we need to make Anthony practice at work. We need to start putting some meetings on his calendar.
How many SHOT Show videos did you have at the end of 2 years ago?
Half of what you did, I think.
Maybe I had like 40.
Yeah. That sounds like work.
Yeah,
it was
like maybe 15. So it's like
that was the year that Jen couldn't figure out how to get them to you.
Yeah. And then Greg had to figure that out. Yeah.
Well, hey, I took them all. I figure if I'm going as media, I'm not going to be that lush that just like sits there and doesn't do anything. Like I feel like I should earn my keep. So I went and I covered a ton of booths and did booth videos with like a bunch of people.
Yeah. There we go.
I earned my keep.
See, this is what I'm talking about. The mindset. She actually holds the mindset. I mean, I go as media, just fuck off or whatever. Yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
God. I love you, Anthony, but me and you cannot go around SHOT Show together because I'm like, come on, Anthony, come on. We have a meeting. Anthony, come on. Anthony, I'm leaving you. And then you're like,
Yeah.
okay, but can I have your phone battery?
Yeah. That's how like me and Jen are usually not together during these events because we'll usually split and then meet somewhere and then split and then meet somewhere. So that's usually, and dude, the guys at Tactical Life, I always roll with them dudes. And I know, I hear them huffing and puffing because I'm just talking to somebody for so long. You know, I know they want to go. But I just can't walk away for a conversation. You know what I mean? I don't know. I guess that's me.
Yep.
What do we have here? The SRO is a dot that you game. What are your thoughts on the Trijicon SRO versus some of the other optics out there right now?
Man, I've been experimenting with a lot of them. And the RMR, like I said, is probably the most ruggedized one. I could beat that on the side of the table or whatever, and just keep racking the gun off of it, and it'll still hold zero. I haven't had that go south on me, so that's been the leading into the SRO, right? The one thing I always look for is the big window, right? The big window. When I started shooting a Delta Point Pro, that's when my game kind of got opened up a little bit. And I'll tell you another one that's really come a long way is the Hollow Sun. Hollow Sun makes a pretty good red dot, and instead of using the space like the Trijicon did, it was a lot smaller. They opened the window up to give you that bigger window, but really not a huge footprint, right? And so I was kind of impressed with that one. I've been running that one for a little while. I went over to the SRO because it made sense, right? The Delta Point Pro is a good optic. I haven't had any problems with one. I've got one that I've been shooting for probably 3 or 4 years. But I like the biggest advantage is I can co-witness it no problem. So I've got iron sights that I can see if it goes south on me in a stage. The other thing is I can adjust it pretty quick. The up and down is a lot easier than getting my finger into the window of the Delta Point Pro and pushing it. And then is it good? Nope. Pushing it again. Nope. All right. Am I all the way up or am I going down? I kind of got time to figure all that crap out, man. So I just want to either make it brighter or I want to make it less bright. And go to work from there. And it's been outstanding. And I'll throw this out there. I'm not sponsored by Trijicon. They're not giving me anything. I pay for all my stuff. And so I dig it, man. It makes sense, right? The battery life has been really good to me. Hasn't lost zero. Shoot the 3.25 or whatever the MOA is, or 275, something. I don't even know, man. It's the smaller one. I don't get into the bigger ones. But been real happy with it. Love it. I have found though that you guys ever seen it where it sits up and it sits forward and there's a gap underneath the glass. You know what I'm saying?
Where the optic just sits pretty high.
Yeah, it sits a little bit higher than the slide, so there's a gap underneath of it. The only thing I've had, man, I was doing some one-hand drills a while back, and I got the holster caught in between the optic and the gun, and so that's really the only thing that I found that was like, oh yeah, you got to be aware of this, right? Because all of us are running Kydex or molded plastic holsters now that have about that spacing, and so you just kind of blindly threw the gun down there, and I'm trying to pull it up, and I look down, and it's stuck on there, and it's just one of the things that kind of, not a big thing, but something guys need to be aware of if they're doing that kind of stuff.
Anything live? Any follow up, Greg? What do we have?
No live at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, here's it, and I've got some kind of throw in here, and working at Hollison, they came a long way from what I originally thought they were. Like I didn't really give them a fair shot because they're the overseas company, and I was like, oh man, these clones of such and such, I didn't really care for them. But running them on some shop guns, I don't find them as like rugged and reliable as like your RMRs and stuff, and I think that's where you pay the up cost. I have seen like sometimes we're shooting like a machine gun, or like we have a P90 mounted with their, I think it's their 507C, and sometimes I'll see it flicker or like dim while we're shooting some of these machine guns. I don't know if that's a battery connection issue or what. So I think for the money they're great, and if that's all you have to spend, I think they're going to do you well. But and I also haven't been. What you got?
I was going to say I got one of the earlier models, and I saw some of that stuff as well. But from what I understand, they've upgraded those now, and so they've made those changes in the optic. I know they had a recall or something, and so they've pulled them all back. I think Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics did a thing with one, and he got it up to like 10,000, 12,000 rounds, couldn't break it, and was like, "Hey, this is good to go." And you know, he's been so influential in the community with red dot pistols. So his white paper everybody references. So good on him for doing all that research, man. He's really moved us into the next stage with all this.
Yeah, I was actually watching. He actually put out a video finding the cadence with your RDS or your red dot sight. So go take a look at that. YouTube, Sage Dynamics. A lot of him talking, but what he's saying makes sense. You know what I mean? It's not like wasted, BS. So take a look at that. I know some of his shoulder drops are real controversial. But I mean, I know, being a YouTuber and having a following, there is some kickback. He dropped it. Not too many people are going to buy an aim point acro and drop it shoulder height of 3-4 times. You're ruining a $700 optic, but and there's probably some kickback as far as the YouTuber side of things of that. But he is doing this research and development on these optics, and a lot of people really find his research to be worthy of spending that $700 or spending that $300 or whatever it is. So,
well, I still get
that's
people
kind of a cool deal.
Well, people are kind of skeptical and scared of that, and I think it's good that he's doing it because it does show that we've made leaps and bounds from the first generation of these optics, right? I mean, you look at it, it's glass. You don't want to drop it. Will it break? Can I be fragile with it? And we have to be real about things, right? Combat or law enforcement is situations where you're going to be put in where you might get hit in your offhand or your strong hand or whatever, and you got to rack the gun off of something. You got to have the confidence to know that it's not going to rip off the slide. You're not going to break the glass, right? And so by him doing these drills or these just kind of explanations of everything really just gives people the confidence that, I've got there's some strength behind this optic. I don't have to worry about it. I mean, when I sit there and take the gun and just beat it into the table and then shoot a 2-inch group at 15 yards, it's like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Like, I thought they would rip off the slide, or I thought my screws would come loose or whatever. And I'm like, that's why it's important that you take the time to mount it properly. And I use a thread locker indicator or thread indicator on my screws, right? These little blue lines that I make on it to know if the screws are starting to come undone on the gun. So it's important. You got to make sure that all that's taken care of.
That's a really good idea. I've never heard of anybody doing the indicators on a firearm before, at least.
Well, I mean, you think about the screws, if they back out, you have no idea, right? So I use the paste. I get it online. It's like $3, and just make a little line across the screw head and the base of the optic. And if they start to come loose, obviously you'll know right away as to why the gun's not zeroing, what's the problem, why your shot's all over the place. But they can come undone. I've had them come undone, and that's why I started putting that on there. Used to use a marker, but a marker, if you have to unscrew it to take the battery out, it might not time to where it's perfect again. But with the paste, you can scrape that off, put a brand new line on it, rock and roll with it.
Yeah, I got a tube of torque seal in the garage. I might do that when the next optic goes on my.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What do you got, Greg? You had one lined up. What do you have?
Yeah. So, what about backup sights for your optic in competition? Do you put any? Oh, I thought that was someone laughing at me. That was a baby.
That is me laughing at you.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So the reason why
'Cause who needs backup optics?
I do very
Yeah.
badly. Two-day matches in a row, I had an optic go down, and I finished worse at my last two-day matches than I did in my. Honestly, I probably got more points at my first 2-day match ever than my last two combined. So, but I obviously can't like stick flip ups on a rifle and shoot 1,500 yards. But anyway,
on a PRS gun, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
So backup sights for your optic in competition. How much thought do you put into this? What do you use? Backup irons, no sights, and why?
So on the 1.0, when I had the Delta Point Pro, I couldn't co-witness with that anyway. So I took the front sight off of it because it was dragging as it came out of the holster. Now with the RMR, it's a lower cut. And so absolutely I would run backup irons. That one stage, like I've had it go out, like when I had other optics on there, the battery connection wasn't good. And so you spend time up on the gun and you're kind of twirling it around like, hey, where the hell is it at? And if you don't have a reference point for your iron sights either, man, you're screwed. So you can't either one, find the dot, two, you can't complete the stage, right? You're just kind of guessing at it. And when you look at an RMR, for that dot to be moved out of the window, it's anywhere between 5 and 8 degrees of movement, right? So if I tilt the gun 5 to 8 degrees, the dot's gone out of the window. So how much does that on the target, right? Well, that all depends on the size of the exposure of the target you've got. And it also depends on the distance to the target. So how much, like when I teach acceptable sight picture, I talk about the sight being pushed all the way over to one side or the other in the rear sight, or it being up and being down. At 10 yards, you're starting to experience Charlies with it being all the way over to the side. 15 yards, you're starting to get into the delta ring. So if you're at 15 or beyond and you don't see the dot anywhere, there's no telling where that round's going to go, man. And so you absolutely have to have irons. I think you can complete the stage at the level that I shoot sometimes. I mean, I'm competing with guys that are just as good, younger kids that are just getting into the sport that just crush it. And so if I lose, 50 points in a stage, or I spend time, I lose 4 to 5 seconds in a stage trying to figure out what's going on with my gun. I'm dropping in places, you know what I mean? And so it just means I have to work that much harder to keep it up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, shit. I mean, feeding off that Steel Challenge match, when I wasn't seeing the dot, I would have said, all right, I gotta have an acceptable enough sight picture to hit that plate. But when you're thinking about it, these are like 6-inch plates at about somewhere between 8 to 15 yards. And I would pull the trigger and it was nowhere near the plate. So, yep. I mean, if I had a human silhouette target, maybe it'll be a Charlie Delta. When you're talking about a 6-inch plate, if you're not really seeing it, odds are you're going to miss it. So there's reference. Obviously, that depends on distance and size and all that other stuff. We do have one live. I believe Steve Durant, the original co-host of the Shooter's Mindset, has a question. I don't know if that's what you got, Greg. What do you have?
Yeah, so I was going to say...
After you unmute your mic, right?
I did unmute my mic before I started talking.
There you go.
But anyway, Steve wants to know if Brandon suggests shooting with a comp and open steel or shooting light springs with light ammo for Steel Challenge.
I don't play Steel Challenge very much. So I guess it would put you in a different division, right? Like you just put a comp on it, puts you in open. I guess I would compete if the gun is able to compete with other guns in the sport, then I would say, yeah, if you're of that level and you can keep up, then do it. But definitely if your strong suit is irons or even carry optics, then I would try to. There's not really a big advantage with a comp, right? Because you're only shooting one round on each steel
minor power
plate.
Factor.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to worry about the doubles. So the comp really allows for the 2 rounds to be put on target USPSA pretty quick. Keep the gun shooting flat. But if you're not worried about the return, you're calling the shot on the front end. Pull the trigger,
I think that's a weird.
Gun. Say
Yeah,
again, you got
that's
cut out.
like a division, like flip flop. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah. If you add a comp, even if you add a comp on an M&P or Glock, that's putting us in the open division. So that's kind of changing things. So I don't. If
Yeah.
I'm running a production division or a limited division steel challenge, I'm probably just gonna go ahead and run the light springs, light ammo, right? That it just makes.
Yep.
If you want to kind of get every inch, every mile type of deal.
Yeah, I mean, if you, it's like a
good
polymer
shit.
guy.
The live stuff.
It's like a polymer guy jumping into limited, right? You watch Bob and Shane and these guys, they're running weights on their guns, trying to weight the gun down, so it'll shoot flatter. You know what I mean? So if I'm running an open, I want to make sure that my gun is. I'm not going to take an M&P and put a comp on the end of it and run an open, right? I'm up against $12,000 Infinity guns with 30 round magazines, and the guns just shoot flat. They're made for that, right? M&Ps aren't necessarily made for that. So I got to stay within my lane of what I can realistically do with the gun and still be competitive.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. I know that, some of the tactical community or the duty community with the Gucci Glocks and the Gucci M&Ps and stuff like that, people are adding comps to the polymer guns. And if you just want to jump into
cool on Instagram.
Yeah, if you want to jump,
cool.
and yeah, it is so cool. And if you want to jump into the Steel Challenge, you want to jump in with those guns. That's what I see. But you got, unless you don't care like where you're shooting and what division you're shooting, you're just kind of there to run your gear. Then that makes sense. But other than that, I don't really see as far as Steel Challenge goes in USPSA or putting a comp on a polymer gun and competing with it. It just hasn't, like, the divisions haven't opened up for that genre yet. I mean, Carry Optics has opened it up, but not as far as comps go on polymer guns.
We had somebody shoot in open with an iron-sighted Glock 26 at USPSA a few months back. That was pretty awesome.
So I've seen a lot of guys at my local club that they come with the battle belt, and they've got RMR, usually Glocks or M&Ps. They've got a battle comp on the end of it and standard magazines. And I, hey man, they're getting out and shooting. And I think competition is probably one of the best arenas to test your skill under stress, right? You have to be accurate, you have to be fast. And those two things transition over into the tactical world from the competition world, period. I don't care. You can fight that tooth and nail, but that's just the brass tacks of it, right? That's what it comes down to. Tactics are something completely different. And if you don't understand the difference between shooting cardboard at a gaming event versus being in an active shooter scenario in a mall, then there's a lot of other things you need to spend time getting smarter on. so with that being said,
we had a guy that came and shot his duty rig at a match. He didn't care how he finished. He just wanted to get more proficient with his rig. He wasn't trying to do tactics or anything, like you said. But I was like, utmost respect. I mean, with his retention holster, and his duty belt, and like he said, I just want to use everything like I do it at work, because my whole point of this is to improve. It crosses over to work, like you're saying, the marksmanship. I know it's not tactical, but the marksmanship and the reaction time and everything is the same. It was just like mad respect for him.
And that's where I was going with that, is these guys show up with these guns. And so the one thing I want them to do is number one, make sure they've got their gun set up right. I watched malfunction after malfunction after, I have a couple of them because they weren't sprung right. So they see the gun on Instagram. They're like, man, I got to have that. So they get that. And then they don't know really what goes in behind that, right? Because they don't run the right ammunition. They don't have the right springs in the gun, whatever. But I love to see that, man. I love to see those guys get out there and run their duty equipment and not care about the score, right? I mean, the first time I shot a match, I was 40%, and I'm like, I'm not going to get beat by a guy that works at 7-Eleven every day and only shoots on the weekends. And I freaking carry a gun every day for work. I was on SWAT team, firearms instructor, the whole 9 yards. And here I am.
Well, I think that's
fucking running laps.
That's why I had so much respect for them, because so many guys that carry a gun for work every day are, I don't want to say scared, but they don't want to go out and compete because they don't want to go get shown up by the guy that works at 7-Eleven that only shoots on the weekends because I carry a gun every day, and so I feel like that is a deterrent to so many law enforcement officers when it shouldn't be. Like, I just want them to come out and, have fun with us and be able to get that time with their gun, because I know so many that don't get that time with their gun.
I see it all the time.
But just such mad respect. He didn't care if he won. I mean, and he was a good shooter. He was a really good shooter. He didn't win, but he didn't come in last either. Yeah. He held his own with that stock Glock, that he's issued as it is. And, I just wish we could get more people to kind of get past that. And
It bruises your ego. I'm telling you, it did me, man. But it motivated me at the same time, right? Yeah. And that's kind of where I came from.
Yeah. Now you're a grandmaster.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be a good thing, if you have somebody that's carrying a gun every day and thinks that they're, the shit with their gun, and then they have to use it and realize that they don't know how to do half the stuff they think they do. It's probably better that they get out there and get a little bit more practice using it. I don't want to say like in a real world application or anything, but just get used to the gun, because the more you shoot it, the more it becomes a part of your body, the more if I do this, that this is where that bullet's going.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It also running those plates, and sometimes these officers will run like a body armor or some sort under their uniform, or if you're running like a military scenario, you got all this gear, and it changes. I remember running almost an IDP match. I know it's not comparable, but we ran it with a lifeguard vest or something on it, and it actually changed the way I pressed out the gun, because I had gear kind of preventing that full press that I'm used to, and it changed everything. Like I ran that stage like shit, just because I had something just over my chest, and this was a light, like, life jacket. You know what I mean? I can imagine an armor, an armor rig or
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
I'm like, holy shit. Like, I'm just like, now I'm feeling like I'm holding the gun more in than I would pressing out. And it's just changing my irons and where shit is happening. I'm like, I ran that stage like shit. And I'm like, holy, if I was a law enforcement officer and I'm wearing this duty gear and all this stuff that's pressing me, making me all muscular, walking around and all this duty gear, it really does change the way stuff.
You bring up a really good point, and that there's a lot of truth to that. And when guys, like, so when you shoot, I expect the gun to do a certain thing, right? I expect it to lift a certain way. I expect it to settle a certain way. And so when it doesn't, right, something gets in the way of that, whether it's your vest or you have a handheld light now and you're shooting one-handed, or, well, this is what I see a lot of, is guys ask me when I grip the gun, why I put my thumb down like this on the frame, right? Instead of it being straight or it being up, I put it down on the frame. Well, that's from running guns with weapon mounted lights, right? I see a lot of guys that'll put their strong hand on, and then they'll take this thumb and will wrap over top of that thumb, and they won't even reach the flashlight. And I'm like, what do you do at night? Like, how do you run your gun at night? Oh, well, I'll put my thumb out there for then. And I said, so you have to change your grip. So then that's going to change the whole way that your gun performs, the way it recoils, the way it feels in their hand. So now you have to take that situation where, and I hate when guys use this tactical shooting shit. It drives me crazy. Like, tactics are a way to solve a problem. Shooting something completely different. You need to learn how to shoot, then you need to go learn how to solve problems. So now they have this problem where they have to learn how to solve this in situations, right? You got people shooting at you, you got to maneuver, you got people around you, innocents, all this other crazy stuff. And now on top of this, I've got the gun doing something different in my hand. And so your brain will go to that and it'll think, why is this happening this way? And you're processing the wrong things. And so if anybody's listening to this, man, go out and shoot some competitive matches and learn how to run your gun. That should be subconscious, to where when the shit hits the fan, so to speak, you can start solving the problem, and shooting is not something you have to think about doing.
Well, that's how I got into competition shooting in the first place, was when I wanted to learn for self-defense because of a situation that happened, and I went to the range every week, and they were like, you should do competitive shooting. And I was like, I'm not good enough for that. They're like, that's not what it's about. It's fun,
Yep.
and it's learning how to handle your gun to where it's second nature. And that is the whole reason that I got into it, is just so I could learn to handle the gun better.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yep. We got a couple live. Bill says, thanks for sharing your knowledge and experiences. Steve said, good show. And TJ wants to know, why are Brandon's reloads so ridiculously fast with factory guns?
I practice them. I'll tell you how I practice them. Yeah, exactly. Right. I dry fire. I don't do it all the time. But I stay into the gun, several times a week, right? I work for a gun manufacturer, so I'm constantly handling guns, manipulating guns. And so it just becomes habits, right? So when I dry fire, I'll set a part time for like 2 seconds, right? I'll set it for 2 seconds. And so I'll start with the gun out up on like a light switch. The buzzer will sound. I'll do my reload at about probably 25%. And I'll work on form. I'll work on repetition. I'll work on the gun being in the right spot, magazine being angled correctly to go into the gun, that sort of thing. Because you're taking a reload, and you're kind of putting a gun somewhere in the magazine and putting it somewhere in this space, and then you have to marry those two up. So you're trying to be as consistent as you can with your position of the gun, position of the magazine. And then I'll start to bring that time down a lot, kind of like what I did with the bill drill, right? Start at a really slow pace, find out what are the things that are going into making that reload, and then start to cut the time down. When you start to cut the time down, what changes, right? Hand speed changes, where the gun is positioned becomes important, where the magazine sits becomes important. And so then I'll go all the way down to 0.8, which is a ridiculous time, right? I mean, most people aren't doing 0.8. But what that does is it makes my hands move fast, right? So I'll start from this position, and I'll hear the beep, and I immediately got to get away from the gun, grab the magazine, and get it back up into position as fast as possible. And that creates the flinch, so to speak, the flinch movement, and what I'm looking for. And I use that in the draw as well. So I explain all this in the class because it's about repetition, man. I see a lot of guys, man, they're professional students. They take a class from this person, class from this person, class from this person. They do all this different stuff, and you're not really going to learn anything a lot different, right? They might put it in a different way, or they might say it, or it might resonate with you a little bit differently, but it really comes down to you just freaking practicing to make sure that you can do what it is they're asking you to do. So taking a class every 6 months, even though it's fun, if you're not practicing in the meantime, you're not going to get any better. And so that's kind of what I look at when it comes to training and stuff. It's got to be important, but if you want to learn how to shoot, right, take a class from a guy that can shoot fast, that can, be kind of well-rounded in the sense, but, take a professional class. I mean, my eyes got opened when I took a class from a professional shooter and learned how to shoot. And then it made my stuff that I did for my job easier, right?
So you talk a lot about cutting time here and there. So for shooters that are already decent shooters, they're pretty good shooters. What do you think is the easiest area to cut time in? Is it movement? Is it trigger prep? If you're already somewhat of an established shooter, what is the area that you can cut the most time in?
That's a good question. All right. So that's going to be dependent on the person, each person, right? And their skill level. So if I teach classes where I'm looking at guys at like a C or a B in USPSA, or maybe like an expert IDPA, the way to get to the next level is just kind of putting it all together. The biggest time saver is in transitions and in setups. Those are the two areas that I focus on big, right? You got to lay the foundation of a solid draw, solid reload. But after you get that part, and then just kind of seeing what's on the gun, right? Interpreting what you're seeing on the gun that goes into your splits. Once you get past that, then it's transitions, moving the gun, right? So if you take a 10-stage match and you've got 10 targets on every stage, and I'm just going to use round numbers and make stuff up. If you're Jennifer, if you're a half a second faster than me on those 10 stages on the draw, you're going to get me by 5 seconds. But if I'm only 1/10 of a second faster on a transition through all those targets, right? 10 targets, 10 stages, let's call it, 100 for a round number. I'm going to gain 10 seconds, right? So I'm going to be +5 on your half second draw. So even though you're gaining a lot of time there, I have more opportunity to gain more time within transitions. And then movement from place to place, right? Moving from point A to point B with the gun should be hard and aggressive. But what a lot of guys do is they run from point A, they're all out, they get all the way to position B, they stop, they present the gun, and then they shoot. And so there's a little something I do a little bit different there at that last piece that really kind of starts to cut that time, because this is what really blows people's minds, right? So I'm in Virginia teaching a 2-day pistol class, and I'm with a lot of good buddies I've shot with for a number of years, and they actually help kind of bring me up in the competitive world. And so I'm there to kind of share some knowledge and say, look, this is what I've learned in the past years. And so we set up a stage, and everybody runs the stage, right? And I walk the stage. And I shoot it 2 seconds faster than everybody in the squad. And the mouth just gets wide open. It's like, how the hell did you do that? Like, you just walked it and we all ran it. I said, it's about your techniques that you're doing, right? It's about how you're moving through the stage. Like, where is the gun when it needs to be there? What are your split times? What are your transition times, right? Focusing on those core elements of a stage. And then I ran it at speed, and I'm like, 4 seconds faster. I beat my walking time by 2 seconds. And so it was a really short stage, something we can move around just a little bit on. But it kind of sent home the message that, just because you're moving fast and it looks fast doesn't necessarily mean it's fast, right? It's about the techniques and the fundamentals that go into those core techniques. When you master those core techniques, then it looks like you're not doing anything, right? You watch Rob Latham shoot, and it's like, God, he doesn't look like he's moving really fast, or
It doesn't look like he's moving fast at all.
Well, and
Yeah,
I think whenever I was doing a lot of pistol, and I probably bugged you to death, asking you a bunch of questions. And one of the things you talked about, I remember, was having the gun up where basically when your body gets there, you're just already behind it. Like, it just kind of comes together. It's not get in position, pull the gun up. Like you were talking about having the gun up to where basically your body kind of falls behind it, and you just fall into place where you have to shoot it because you're there. It just kind of that technique of having it up and ready to go.
Yep. So this is a huge one, right? And so if there's, I hope you got a good crowd listening. I'm gonna give away a golden nugget here. And so that you're exactly right. And so if you think about the time that it takes me to move from point A to point B, let's say it takes 3 seconds, right? So 3 seconds to get from point A to point B. And so if I get there, I get from A to B, and then I take and extend the gun. How long does this take you to do, right? Depends on the distance of the target, size of the target. I get it. Call it 10 yards. So my extension to fire time at 10 yards is like 65, right? Something like that. Call it a 80. So I get that three seconds to get there. Then I have to do this, and I pull the trigger. So that's 3.8 seconds now it's taken me to get from point A and break the shot at point B. Where is, if it's going to take me 3 seconds to get from point A to point B, when can I start presenting the gun? When can I start seeing the sight? When can I start prepping the trigger? And when do I start settling my body so my body's not doing this, or I'm not doing this when I get to that position to shoot, right? So that technique, that setup of getting in position, comes down to footwork. It comes down to your knees. It comes down to when you present the gun. Because now behind cover, or not necessarily behind cover, but right before I get to that position, I can extend. I can see the sight. I can start to get some sort of sight picture. I can prep the trigger. And I know the targets are where they're at. They haven't disappeared on me. They haven't moved on me, right? So now I come into that target, and I'm coming in at a level that's right along that A zone. All I got to do is just sure it up. And as soon as I see what I need to see, I start pressing the trigger. And so now that 3 seconds becomes 3 seconds that I start shooting the gun instead of 3.8 seconds in starting to shoot the gun. So there I've already got you by a second, just getting into that position.
Yeah, that's something that definitely separates the new shooters from the really really good shooters. And that's something that I try and help. I'm obviously nowhere near your level, but I like to get people into the sport. Bring new shooters out for their first time and kind of get them through it, and then let somebody with much more skills kind of teach them. But that's something I try and teach them. If you come around a corner like this, versus coming around a corner and then you're going to shoot it a lot faster.
Yep. It really is a huge time saver. I know the one of the drills I set up for class that really brings it home is I forget what it's called. I saw it from another guy. It's I didn't certainly come up with it, but it's 5 positions, right? You have 1 in the middle, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and you're just kind of moving in and out of these positions in a variety of different ways. And I'll walk it, and sometimes I'll shoot it around 19, 21 seconds, and most guys are 28, 32 seconds for running this drill, and they're like, "But you walked it and you didn't even run." And I said, "Yeah, because of these techniques." But the other really important thing is that my foundation for shooting is pretty solid in the sense that I don't miss a lot, right? They're 2 or 3 shots, 4 shots in each position because they're not seeing the sight, they're not prepping the trigger, they're moving the gun when they pull the trigger, and we got to start back at day 1 before we can even get going in that, because I got to get you hitting the target before I get you worried about moving, right? A lot that goes into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, so many good tips in this.
He's frozen again.
Yeah.
Am I frozen?
You were
Am I
frozen. Good? You were frozen with your mouth all open. Like, no, I'm just kidding. You weren't really, but it was funny to make you think.
Oh man, I've been laggy. So we figured I can't record the show. Well, now we know I can't record the show while I'm doing the show live because it just lags me up. But there's so many good tips shared in this episode, man. It's been a while since we had one of these. I
really hate I never got to go take a class from you, because I really did try to after you were on the show last time, because I love your analytical math and breaking it down. You know what I mean? That's just how my brain works.
Yeah. To kind of feed off Steve's initial question, he asked, because in Steel Challenge, there's no major and minor power factor. So you figure that your high level guys or guys who've played that game a little bit, they're running that minor power factor load, and there's no minor floor. So you're running these bunny fart loads. So they're your open division and your different divisions, there's really they're all kind of the same as far as the power factor floor. So he was kind of elaborating on that question. Does it even make much sense to really run a comp versus running a gun lightly sprung, et cetera, et cetera? So that kind of elaborates on his question as far as Steel Challenge running. I don't know if you guys who do this all the time, they are running comps on their guns still.
Yeah.
So I think there's something there to be said as far as running a comp.
I mean, people run comps with 22s in Steel Challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the bigger question is can you transition fast enough between steel that really you want the gun running that flat? If you're not transitioning that fast, then it really doesn't matter anyway. But that's a good question. I don't run Steel Challenge enough. I'll go shoot it on every once in a while. I'll take my daughter to it or something, because that's a great place to start kids and get them interested in it.
Yeah, I got one here from Sam. He says, thank you, Brandon Wright. This is what I remember from taking your class. This is a game changer. So a lot of tips shared in this one. People who've previously taken a class, but you said you have 4 spots available in your Tennessee class. So if you're close to Tennessee, you're in that Georgia, easily just drive over to that state. Man, I love Tennessee as a state to live in, man. It's
gorgeous.
Really nice state. A lot of good shooting over there. Just the country, the whiskey, the drinking, the environment over there. You know,
Yeah.
You just like the whiskey, Anthony.
I do love the whiskey, but no, the shooting environment, the shooting community and the environment is so much better, essentially over in those states.
You just got to be
So that's what
careful
I
because
had.
you got the meth heads out there too that might rob your hotel room. So
Yeah.
be careful with that one.
I'm sure. It's no different in Florida, man. It's different in South Florida, as you
I
can
was about to
imagine.
say that there's meth heads
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. What do we have? Obviously, you work for Smith and Wesson. Do you see yourself shooting a revolver in competition? If so, which one?
No, man, that's if I've got a weak part of my game, that's it. And
Oh,
this
come
is sad.
on.
Yeah. Look, this is sad to say, but I don't even own a revolver.
What?
Yeah,
What?
I don't. I don't spend any time with them. Tap rat go just doesn't work on them. I can't figure that out. No,
We
it's
have a friend that shot an indoor USPSA match with us with a 5-shot revolver, and he didn't have moon clips. And so he's a really good shooter, and it was just funny. He'd shoot, and he's unloading out of his pocket. We're all talking smack behind him the whole time he's doing it, and he'd shoot. It was the most fun ever.
Yeah. I'll say that the Performance Center makes some really good products. The 686, the 929, both of those I think are good revolvers. Obviously, any competition gun I get, I've got to make sure that I can see the sights that are on it. Got to make sure the trigger feels the way it does. Tony Mealy does a great job over at the Performance Center and setting these guns up and stuff. So I'd say I'd probably start there. But honestly, I don't have enough experience on it. And like I said, maybe I'll get one day, but
you got to get yourself this R8 right here.
Yeah.
Before, if you were to tell me, but a couple months ago, I would have said the same thing. And I was like, you know what? The Performance Center gun, 8-shot. I was like, a decent trigger pull. And, you got to shoot these steel challenge matches or these action pistol matches in double action only. So I don't give a shit what the single action feels like because you're going to be pulling the trigger every time in double action. It's kind of like.
I will say this though.
Yeah.
I will say this: a revolver will help your game. It'll help your trigger pull. I use I have a 3rd gen 5906 that I use, and I practice with that, and it's to practice that smooth pull to the rear, man. And that's a good training tool.
Yeah, get yourself. I think a lot of people with a revolver game, they get into these air weights, and there's nothing. They have their purpose, and I think people just shoot these 38 lightweight pocket carry kind of revolvers, and they see that long double action pull. They see that kind of like very mediocre sight picture, and they see these 5-shot revolvers, and they kind of get discouraged about the revolver game in general. You get yourself a nice Performance Center heavy gun, maybe 8-shot, maybe 6-shot, whatever it is, and you really find your way with the revolvers. Like, I would never have shot a revolver competition. I was like, that's for the old guys, you know what I mean? Oh, it's so slow. And I still gotta find my way, because in Steel Challenge I had like a few moon clips, so I would de-moon and then moon it with a tool, and all these guys are already loaded up looking at the stage, and I'm still there like pressing rounds into the moon clip with a tool. I'm like, holy shit, there's got to be a better way, a faster way to get out there. I'm just thinking about buying like a shit ton of moon clips and just load them all up. So if I'm running a Steel Challenge match, I just have a pin of moon clips, and I'll just, you know what I mean, rather than just load it up, because it was just such an inconvenience. It was so slow for me to de-moon and moon.
I've seen guys show
I'm sure
up.
I can learn something from some of these guys.
I've seen guys show up with the little clear tackle boxes. I call them parts boxes, and they'll show up with like 2 of them, and it's just full of loaded moon clips.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it that way. You got to do it that way. The de-moon and moon. And then if they don't sit in the moon clip right, it throws them all off. So you got to almost de-moon to re-moon again. Pain in the balls. So I just got to get more moon clips for
It
the
sounds
revolver.
so
And God
funny.
bless those guys that are.
D-moon and re-moon.
Yeah,
I'm thinking he's doing a lot of.
I don't know if
over
I'm
there.
saying the
Like
terminology
it
right.
really sounds hilarious. I'm just saying, like
Yeah,
my mind
I
is
don't know if
going
I'm
places
either.
I never wanted to go. I'm just saying. Love you, Anthony, but never wanted to go there.
Yeah.
Stop
Well,
mooning
you know,
us.
you
Oh,
gotta
God.
work the moon clips. It was just, yeah. Oh man, it's just something that I don't know. I gotta get into just buying a shit ton of moon clips and just have them loaded up. I'm sure that's what those USPSA guys are doing, because I'm sure they're not doing that. And God bless those guys who are speed loading these revolvers on a stage of fire. That seems to be a skill in itself for sure.
Yeah.
A little bit more, and man, this show has been awesome. We were definitely going a little bit more past that hour, but we got some good tips. Some fast ones here. Does fast splits really get all the chicks, or is this just an internet dumb thing?
Oh my God.
Oh my God. I don't even know how to answer that. Flat. Well, God, I really don't.
You've been married and obviously have a bunch of kids, so this doesn't really kind of hit home
Brandon's
with you.
thinking, why did you ask me this?
This is kind of the
Dude, that was an unfair question. He's married.
This is the Instagram, just to appease the Instagram and the internet kind of talk.
Yeah. Well, so oh man, so I get a lot of I watch a lot of guys do a lot of things on Instagram, right, and social media, and it's I laugh a lot of times, and it's like, all right, yeah, you filmed 13 times and here's your best run, and okay, you're this shooter, but yet you show up, you claim to be this, that, and the other, and you show up and you can't demo in front of people, you can't perform at a match, and all of a sudden you're doing all these crazy things, and you just, man, I guess that's the internet, right? That's why people follow other people and whatnot. I'd say splits are a big part of the game, though, right? When you look at competitive shooting, if you look at a tactical scenario, right? Tactical scenario is I see a threat, I shoot a threat till that threat goes down, and so the objective is to try to get as many rounds into that threat as you can, and stop that threat as quickly as possible, right? In competition, it's I know I'm only going to put 2 rounds, maybe 3 rounds in it, so if I can.
Oh
no,
he just completely disappeared.
Yeah, I thought I was laggy here. I was like, what's going on?
He's not laggy, he's gone.
Splits do get the chicks.
Do we see if he comes back?
Yeah,
you gonna weird. Message him, Anthony? I think he probably either hit the wrong button or his.
Oh, here he is.
There he goes.
Hey, am I back?
Hey, welcome back.
Someone called. That question? Did that question make you that uncomfortable?
No.
Did someone call you on your phone? Is that what it was?
No, I don't know what happened. That's weird. I apologize for that.
That's all right.
We were on the splits get chicks topic.
Yeah, all right. So aside from that part of it, so splits are really important when it comes to shooting long distance targets, right? Like Max Michel, right? One of the best shooters in the world, if not the greatest shooter in the world right now, is wicked fast at shooting far targets really fast. And so one of the things that I've been trying to do to up my game, honest hold A-zone hits at 25 yards running high 2s, low 3 splits. And that's really hard to do. And so it's about your gun setup, it's about your ammo setup, and mostly it's about your grip, right? Where most people at 25 yards might be 7s or 8s or, full second in between shots. I'm trying to get it down to high 2s. So I have a action target torso that has the Alpha Charlie. Love those things. Use the targets that you can just take out, set it up with a 2x4, and it's good to go. And with these torsos, right, I'm shooting steel, and so I'm trying to shoot faster with steel, and so with that, it's I'm right around probably mid 3s, somewhere floating in there. So what I'm trying to cut is down to like an 05 or an 07 faster, So I have to dive into, what it is that I can see, what I can process, how I can manage the gun, that sort of thing, to get in those twos. So, I mean, it does help there, but that's, that's where those guys are smoking me, especially, at those farther targets. And it all comes down to those splits, right? Those and transitions, moving the gun.
Splits do get the chicks in the end of it all. I mean, Jen, what do you think? If I was shooting fast splits, you would think I'm pretty awesome. So that might that might get your attention there. What are you thinking?
Jeez.
She just talked shit because you were late for the meeting.
This is about to go south quick.
I was about to say, do you really want to ask me?
Like,
that?
would you rather be with that fast? would you rather be with that fast split shooter or that slow guy over there? You know what I mean?
Do you really want to ask me this live?
Yeah, we're just trying to get in your. We were just trying to resolve this internet thing. I don't know.
I'm not a.
Are you gonna gravitate towards that fast split guy or that really slow guy?
I'm not a gun bunny, so it's probably gonna have a lot more to do with what kind of human being you are than how you shoot. Cause
I'm talking about the initial, like I don't know you. You don't know me. You showed up. This dude is fucking boom, 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 boom. This dude is showing out.
Okay, if he's like that, boom, 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 and he turns around and he's an asshole,
Okay.
deal breaker.
Yeah. All right, but
all right,
the splits are going to get your
I'm-
attention. So that's what.
Yeah,
that's
but
what I'm
I'll
going with.
say this. Well, all right. So it'll get your initial attention, and then what are you listening for after that? I'm listening for 2A's, alpha, 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 alpha. But what am I going to hear when I hear that shit? Is I'm going to hear Charlie Delta, Delta Mike, 2 Charlie, 2 Delta, hey, come
2
with us.
Mike. And then I'm just gonna fall out laughing back behind everybody else. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
you just showed your ass there.
we have some live. What do we have?
Yeah, Steve just said that everything was very well explained tonight.
Yeah,
Cool.
I
That's
agree.
true.
Yeah, I'm really digging this show, and the last episode 87 was about an hour and a half. We're gonna break that record here with the second show with Brandon Wright. We hit. So you recently put out a video on social media, essentially kind of tracking the front sight. I think was the general concept, and some of these one-shot drills, slow fire kind of manipulation drills.
Yep.
Versus something that you can kind of open up a little bit and still kind of get that same score on your paper target. So what do you have as far as learning how to track the front sight and kind of shooting faster and seeing what you're seeing?
So that's a great question, and I put that video out there. And for the guys that are into shooting, that are really understanding what's going on in the gun, it makes sense to them. So the guys that aren't, sometimes they're not quite getting it. So I see a lot of these downloadable targets where guys are shooting all these groups in 1-inch circles and really small things that are fitting on an 8.5 by 11. And that's good, right? I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm about to say, because we need a foundation to draw from, right? I need a solid trigger press. I need a solid sight picture. I need solid fundamentals. It all starts with fundamentals. If you don't have solid fundamentals, it's really hard to get to the next. I work with a lot of guys that are really good slow fire shooters, right? I mean, they'll make a group like this at 5 yards and we'll all feel confident about our ability. And what happens is when the timer gets there and I ask them to do it faster, I ask them to go faster, then what ends up happening, the gun comes up, they're just looking at the target, they got no awareness of the sights on the gun, they go through the motions and they just start pulling the trigger and they're hoping for the same result, and it doesn't happen, right? So I equate this to baseball, right? It's going to be a really easy analogy for everybody to follow. So think about a softball pitch. Everybody can see a softball pitch, right? Even after a couple of beers and you get it with your buddies, you get out there, you can crank one over the fence, right? It's coming at a slow speed. You can track it, you can see it, you can hit it. Well, as we start to, and if you think about the sights on the gun, like the ball throughout this analogy, it'll make total sense. Right. So when we start to shoot slow, we're shooting those 1-second splits. We have all day to see the sight. We have all day to pull the trigger. We have all day for the gun to settle. And you can process that, right? So you're running on like a modem speed, so to speak. Well, as that baseball starts to come faster and faster and faster and faster, then it becomes more difficult, right? When you look at baseball as a game, you look at professional league baseball, and then you have the minors, then you have college, then you have high school. Well, what changes between high school and the pros? I mean, third base is third base, right? What changes is the speed of the game, right? And the batting and being able to predict where the ball is going to come off the bat. Well, in shooting, we look at a basic level shooter being able to execute the fundamentals at a slow or reasonable pace. Well, an advanced level shooter is going to do the same thing. There is no special technique. We're not point shooting. I hate point shooting, by the way. No double taps, none of this stuff. It's core fundamentals of shooting. And so as the baseball starts to come faster, right, we go into the college level, we get into the minor leagues where they're, consistently 92 to, maybe 87 to 92 miles an hour. And then we go to the majors, the speed of the ball now changes only by maybe 5 miles an hour or so. But that batter has to predict when they're going to hit the ball within a few feet of it leaving the pitcher's hand. So what does that mean? How do we equate that to shooting? Well, the sights, as we start to shoot faster, start to move up and down faster. And so my predictability of where the sight's going to be when it lands based on the timing of the gun, my grip, the recoil management, all of that stuff is kind of what I'm looking for, right? What I'm seeing on the gun. So for me, my 100-mile-an-hour fastball is a 15 split. A 15 split for me, I can't see, I can't correct, and it's very difficult for me to call. But I know that based on the distance to the target, if my grip is good, then I'm going to be able to hold the shot into the target. So if I'm shooting a 3 to 5 yard shot, that's probably what I'm going to use. But as the distance starts to get greater, and so the timing on the gun has to slow down a little bit, where can I start to see the sight? And this is where guys miss it, right? I can see at a 20, a 21, a 22, I can start to see the sight. I can see it, I can call it, but I can't fix it. It's a really important statement. I can see it, I can call it, but I can't fix it. When it gets to be about a 28, then I can fix it. So that difference in time is only like 0.08 that I'm operating in, but the ability for me to get hit on target is what is so crucial out of that. Most people don't run the gun fast. They get up there and they go pop, 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 as fast as they can pull the trigger. But what are they really getting out of the gun? Are they seeing the sight? Are they calling the shot? The biggest thing, when the light bulb clicked for me in competitive shooting is when I could leave a stage and go, all right, the fourth target on the left, I need to go look at that because I don't know where that second shot was. But all the rest of them I can call. So when they're calling alpha, 2 alpha, 2 alpha, alpha Charlie, I'm good with that. When I get to that fourth target and it's like one hanging on the edge of Charlie Delta, then that's what I saw on the gun. So I'm confirming what I saw. I can see everything through a stage. Nothing's point shot. Nothing is just throwing the gun up there and pulling the trigger. So the purpose of what I went to put on social media with that was for people to start interpreting at a faster speed, because the slow stuff's easy. That's the softball pitch. We can all hit that. It's when you get in the majors and you start to push yourself to go faster and see faster and understand what's happening on the gun faster. When you can interpret what the gun is telling you at those speeds, that's when you know you're getting over a hump in your shooting. So it's good to go out to the range and figure out what those times are and find out what your breaking point is, right? My breaking point is about a 15 split. That's when things happen. And in that video, you saw that I shot 4 really fast and then I had a bump in the trigger. Well, I'm pushing my 100%. I'm going to have those hiccups. It's when I back it down. Like, how far do I back it down to be able to be consistent, number one, and two, be able to be repeatable. Those are two important terms too.
Yeah,
that's kind of a really long way to say that.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Yeah, that's some good tips on the show. I really enjoyed this one. Your website, wrightshooting.com is the website. You had some shirts going up. You still offer the tack rack. I think from episode 87, you offer for more pistols.
Yeah.
Now, other than I think it essentially was released for the Glock, I think now you can get them for the Shields and you can get them for a variety of other pistols. What's the update with that?
Yeah, we still got it's going strong and still helping out people that are having issues racking guns. We have them for the shields. We don't have them for the 2.0 shield. Smith changed something in the back plate that kind of makes that difficult. But the newest thing is, man, we've developed the 365. So we've got a tack rack coming for the 365 standard and the XL. So look for that here very shortly. I'll do a newsletter release when that does become available on our website. So if you go to wrightshooting.com and you sign up for the email blast, then you'll get the information on that right away. Sign up for Instagram, Wright Shooting on Instagram, and I'll post it there as well once that happens. And hopefully we can help some people out there having trouble pulling the slides back on those guns too.
Boom, there we go. Any upcoming matches, any kind of events, any projects here?
Yeah, I'll be at SHOT Show at the booth. I'll be in the LE section. That's a big one coming up in January. I haven't planned my match schedule yet. What I usually do is just kind of put it on my work calendar, and that comes first. Out of needs of what the company needs first. But I do get Saturday and Sunday off, so if I'm in the area or I can travel to it, then I'll get out and shoot them. So my goal is to shoot 2 or 3 USPSA matches, but I also want to shoot 2 or 3 IDPA matches too. Like I said, it's fun. It's still keeping keeping the skills fresh, and it's just what it is for me. It's just stressing or putting in my work to be able to try to get better, man. I still have weaknesses in my game.
Yeah, there we go. Lastly, we're gonna wrap this one up with this one once we get into live. Sure. I would say we'll say it like this: your GM, some of your really good shooters, we'll put it like that. They seem to kind of pick and choose what matches they kind of go to. You don't see them show up to a lot of local matches. Is there kind of a concept behind that? I know in your case you're juggling a lot of work stuff, but kind of like what do you look for when choosing a certain match? I mean, why do you go to this specific match? What makes you put that on the list?
So that's a really great question. The big shooters, they go to the bigger matches because they want the titles, right? Nationals, area matches, things like that. And they all have lives too, right? Like Ben's out training all the time, Bob's training all the time. And so we all have to, feed our families and pay the bills. Unfortunately, there's a lot of sectional matches and state matches that don't. Think about, when I was sponsored, right? I didn't pay for anything, but I certainly didn't take that for granted, because I'll tell you right now the way I could have afforded it. Raising 3 kids, my wife, we tried to keep her at home. It was the most important thing we could do for our family, and that's got to come first. And so with that being said, when you think about $150 ages, the ammo that it takes to do it, the hotel, the food, if I was driving to it, I'd be into it for $800. And then what do you get out of it, right? So you get a record out of it, right? I can say that I've won 5 national titles in over 35 state and local regional area matches. But what does that really mean? I got a bunch of plaques in my garage that I can't really do anything with. So to be honest with you, is the money worth it? Is the investment to win? There's no big. For those, that's how they're doing that. I mean, sometimes it might be a warm up to, like, you got area coming up, area match in say March. They might be worried to get warmed up for that, and it's back to real life. Means a lot to a gunmaker for a big sponsor to win an area match. It's not so much, regional match or a sectional sometimes, but it just falls within the schedule too. I mean, I quite a bit. I'm all over the East Coast. So with that being said, it's like, all right, I've been gone Monday through Friday. Do I really want to leave on Saturday and Sunday and then turn around and leave again on Monday. Miss an area match if that's when it falls and where it falls. So for me, it's just about convenience of the match. I'm not so concerned about winning area matches or nationals anymore. Hell, I haven't attended nationals in a long time. I say I wouldn't, or I don't. A lot of times it doesn't work. Making matches that are going to be beneficial to them, that they can market for themselves and be able to, then turn around and use that in the industry. And so I think that's how they're probably picking them. And nobody, 12, 15 inches a year is a long bottom match, man. Standing around watching people shoot stage one or two different ways. It's peeking in on you.
Yeah, they're starting to sneak in. So yeah, I think unless we have any live, I think we're gonna wrap it up with that. But that makes a lot of people think some of these I don't know what people's definition of top tier shooters are, but I think they're practicing all day and then they show up to these national matches and they just they win that and then that's it. And that necessarily isn't the case for every shooter. But it kind of does make sense the way you put it in. Like, why win all these state and local matches? They kind of don't, it just kind of stacks the resume up, but what does it really kind of solve? Like me and Greg were talking in a pre-show, and like these PRS matches, you can spend $1,000 if you're traveling out of state for these matches. I mean, even the pistol matches, when I was doing them, I was anywhere between like $5,000 and $1,000, and that's what sharing hotel. That's what kind of condensing it all. There's a lot of money that goes involved in that thing. So I
Don't
mean,
say this live. I don't want my husband to hear this.
I don't know. I don't play the PRS game, but it seems up there. So.
Oh, it's the same.
Yeah, I mean,
no, actually, it's not. It's a lot cheaper.
It's a lot cheaper.
PRS costs nothing to go travel.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper. So, but yeah, that makes sense. The investment is kind of steep, I think.
Yeah,
but I will say this though: if matches, and I know it's hard to sponsorship right now with everything going on, but if they give away cash, if they give away, if they give, I think you'll start to see went up. I kind of times and all right, well, I have the plea of winning $100 here. He's 100. Yeah, I might go to that match, right? And I might see what I can do because I hate to say it that way. I love the sport. I'll shoot low pitches now. I'll shoot because I'm things there. I mean, you pay $20, you go in, you shoot 6 stages, you're done by lunchtime. Otherwise, I'm paying anywhere from $175 to $250 for maybe a 2-day match. Now I'm invested all this in. Other than the experience, what do we get out of that? I don't know. Some guys do it because they love it, and good on them. But I don't have the time or a lot of times the money to be able to invest in that.
Yeah, there we go. Unless we got any live, I think we're gonna wrap it up with this. Greg, you got anything?
Nope, nothing live.
Yeah, the bandwidth was a little bit low, a little laggy on my end, so hopefully it doesn't transition over to the live show or the after live show. But we're gonna wrap this one down to shout outs. What do you got?
For who?
Greg. Yeah, Greg. The lights just went off on me. It's like, holy shit, what's going on?
All right. I have Shooters and Sharpshooters of Augusta, our local ranges here. Overwatch Defense for an awesome Cerakote job. PDC Custom for a real slick rifle chassis. Today they just posted up that they finished their chassis for the CZ457. He had a prototype up. I can't wait to get my hands on one of those. NDZ Performance to build your Gucci Glock on a budget. Phone Scope for all your rifle phone scope needs. Shooter's World Propellant. I use it for both my PRS rig and my USPSA rig. And that's it.
Jen, what do you have?
Macmillan stocks for awesome PRS stocks or hunting or whatever else you want to do with a rifle. They've got a stock for you. Night Force Optics, GSL suppressors, so I can be civilized and not have everyone hating me next to me.
Thank you, GSL.
Shut up. Warren, scope mounts and bipods, awesome. Under Industries for your jersey needs and sweatshirts. Shooters of Augusta and Sharpshooters of Augusta. Spartan Precision Rifles. I'm getting ready to send him some more barrels to spin up for me. Weebad, get solid with Weebad support bags. Phone scopes, so you can watch your impacts at a distance. And HD Gold for awesome glasses.
Boom. We have HD Gold coming up here on the show soon here on the Shooter's Mindset. So stay tuned for that. Brandon, what do you have as far as shout outs going? And we'll wrap it up with that.
Keep it short and sweet, man. Smith & Wesson. You know, if you haven't got your hands on a 2.0, it's a lot different platform than the 1.0 was. We've got some exciting things coming up. Really excited to get some things rolling out here. Man, I've been so impressed with this gun, and I got to say, it's not because I just work for the company. I work for the company because I believe in the product. I've been shooting, you know, Anthony. I've been shooting Smith & Wesson for 13 years, and I've only been working for them for 4. Shooting for them for 8. Man, if you haven't got out there and really put your hands on one, just go to a gun stop, pick it up, put a few rounds through it. And the best way I found to do it is shoot what you know, and then pick the 2.0 and shoot it and see what difference it is and see if I can help your game. It really, it's changed me a lot, man. Love the platform.
Boom, yeah. Shout out to my end. And if you're watching on the YouTube side of things, the video yellow subscribe button, hit that. Every Tuesday, we're trying to bring you a new episode of the Shooter's Mindset. Shout out to Taran Tactical Innovations, GSL Technologies, and Rise Armament. My room has been occupied by younger ones, so
Awesome.
I'm going to wrap that up with that. This will do it for episode 273 of the Shooter's Mindset. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. We're out of here.